welcome to the Bookyard. I'm Sam.
And I'm Kai.
So how was your week?
Oh my goodness. So as you guys know, Sam was talking last 2 episodes, I think, about how she was getting a new job. She did get said job, and
I did. I started 2 weeks ago now. Can you believe that?
I can. So me and Sam don't work together anymore.
It's been devastating.
It really has been. I've taken a hit.
It's honestly so hard going from somewhere because I worked at my previous job for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And I basically knew everyone there, and it was honestly amazing because I was on really great terms with most of the people who I worked with in like the entire place that we work.
Yeah.
So like everyone walking down the halls was like, Sam, how are you? Hi.
Yeah.
You know, they like kind of like knew me as people, and I moved to a different place. And now it's just so odd because I walk in and I'm like, hey, like I know 1 or 2 people and that's it. So it's just been so devastating because like halfway through the day, I'm always like, what's Kai doing?
Well, it's definitely been an adjustment because I don't mean to be like that, but it's like I actually have to do my job now. Like before when I was working with Sam, I would do my job, but it didn't feel like it because I was hanging out with my friend all day. Like
For sure. And it was like a very even distribution of work.
Yes. Like we would just sit and dink around and tell stories and do whatever we wanted for 10 hours a day. And now I don't have that. So it's been really rough.
I know, it kind of sucks. But also, I am liking my new job.
Yes, she is. She's going to buy me a bathtub.
Yeah, it's amazing. Part of my job ended up being in some like merchandising and everything. So I get to do a lot of purchasing and then some kind of like retail stuff as well.
Yeah.
Along with like working with a bunch of volunteers and like running community projects and events. And it's really cool. It's an awesome job. But I have this very cute little like bathtub like the retail part of where I work.
It's like miniature, like it's
and
tiny.
I was like, Kai, look, I've done so much organization in the last like week. And she was like, what is that bathtub?
I have no idea what I'm gonna do with it, but I am moving, so
Yeah, you're moving. That's so much stuff happening.
I
for
know
both of us.
and I'm gonna be even further than Sam.
But you will be closer to my job, so I can go hang out with you.
Oh my gosh. And we're gonna have to meet, because me and Sam obviously go to Chili's all the time. We're just gonna have to meet at our regular Chili's regardless. I refuse to go to the other Chili's.
This episode is brought to you by Chili's. It is an unpaid
Heck yeah.
advertisement.
Heck
But
yeah.
we are available for paid advertisements, Chili's.
We will take payments in just chips and salsa.
Every time we walk in there, the waiters are just confused because we're experts at this point.
Yeah.
So
We don't
they'll
even
be
open
like-
it up.
They'll be like, hey, can I get your drinks? And we'll be like, no, you can get us white skillet queso, lemonades, chips and salsa. And honestly, depends on the day. But like if we get anything else, it's basically exclusively to dip in the queso.
Absolutely. When are we gonna go to Chili's again, actually?
Probably here soon.
I swear it's like a drug. Like if I don't go to Chili's for a while, I like don't really think about it. And then if I go again, then I just think about it nonstop. And then I want to go more.
That's true.
Do you think that I could like get married in Chili's?
You probably could. You could rent out an entire Chili's, I bet.
What if I had my reception in Chili's
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
and all that you could eat was chips and salsa?
Ooh, that'd be pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, we're running right now, but
Sorry. You know, when we've been together for like a few hours, we recorded last week's episode just barely, and now we're recording this one. We had like
Yeah.
a dinner break.
yeah.
We're running a little low on batteries right now, so.
The later we get, you can tell the last episode of a batch we've done because it's always just the most like.
No, absolutely. If an episode makes sense, it was the first one we recorded, so all the other ones are just out there, but it's fine.
But let's get started.
This week we are going to talk about Sunrise on the Reaping.
Yes.
Yay! This is Suzanne Collins' latest work.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked about last episode, this falls between, as we like to call it, Songbird Snake and the original Hunger Games trilogy.
Yes.
So, as everybody kind of knew, this book talks about Haymitch's Hunger Games. So, the 25th, I believe. No, the 50th Quarter Quell. Yeah, so it's the 50th Hunger Games. It is a Quarter Quell where they decide like a special thing. And as we found out in Catching Fire,
The 75th.
yes, the Haymitch's games were when they had twice as many kids in the games.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So pretty brutal. We were kind of expecting that. And honestly, we've been so excited for this book forever. Like since we figured out that it was coming out, we have just been so excited. We like 6 months ago were like so happy that we decided to reread all the Hunger Games in preparation for this. And then we read Songbird Snake as well.
Yeah. I mean, Haymitch is just so hot in the weirdest way that like I was just really excited.
No, Kai has been talking nonstop about how hot Haymitch is every time we bring this book up. Like even before it came out, she was just like, oh, there's just something about him, you know? And you're like, right. Because the Haymitch we like knew was like a total alcoholic and like crazy person. But we all loved him.
I don't know. There was something about him that was just so zaddy, you know?
No, I get it. Sadly, I wish that now were one of the times where I'm like, I don't get it. I get it.
Yeah.
But anyway, there are a lot of reasons we love Haymitch. One, he's hot. He's also like extremely strategic.
Yes, we see so much more of that in this.
Yes. He also loves PETA. So we've talked about this like a ton, you and I have, where he genuinely like loves PETA because he sees that he's like a good person.
Right.
And Haymitch really like butts heads with Katniss, but I think a lot of times it's because they're so similar.
Right.
And you've said to me a lot, like, I feel like he sees himself in her.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably true.
I think there are a lot of parallels. We'll get deeper into it, but like there are a lot of parallels to Haymitch's story and Katniss's story.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that he, like, for that reason wants to save PETA, because I think that if he could go back and everything, like, he would want to save other people. Like, he didn't want to be the victor. He didn't go into his games expecting to win.
Right.
We also, for some reason, we genuinely loved him in the original series because he, like, we know that he's been completely traumatized, right? I don't know why that's like a, wow, we love him. I think it's probably like a sympathetic character kind of thing, but we definitely like see him as a person where we're like, oh my gosh, he has like genuinely been through it.
Yeah.
He obviously didn't cope with it in very healthy ways, but he also, as we like see throughout the original series, he has to every single year coach the boy and girl from 12 as they go into the Hunger Games.
Yeah, who are obviously set up to lose. So he's just sending them in to lose.
Yeah, and he knows it. And like by the time that we get to the actual Hunger Games, he's basically given up. And you can see that at the beginning, right? They like have to douse him in water and have to like get him ready. And he's like, why? They're going to lose anyway.
Yeah. The trauma that he carried was just like, wow. But it also weirdly attracted me more to him.
Yeah, you love that. So what did you expect from the book? Like before we get into what actually happened, like what did you expect?
So I knew how Haymitch's games ended based off what we learned in Catching Fire.
Because he was alive.
Well,
see, you're like, I had a strong feeling that he won.
I had a hunch that Haymitch won. No. I mean, like how his games like ended, like what he did to win is what I.
No, I totally got where you were going. I just thought it was hilarious because that's something I would say.
So I was excited to see how we get to that point of like him winning, because obviously he wins. But I was also really hoping to see some political themes and kind of what Suzanne Collins was thinking, especially because we talked about this last episode, but just to kind of recap, I think a lot of people after seeing Tom Blythe as Snow kind of like took it and was like, Snow is mighty fine. I'm obsessed with Snow, Team Snow. And I was excited to see what Suzanne Collins did with that, because literally terrible, but like that she should have casted somebody ugly. Like I hate to say it, but so those were kind of my expectations. What about you?
No, I think we kind of expected quite a lot. I was really, really excited to see what got Haymitch to the point of like basically not functioning in society, because obviously as a victor, like there aren't a lot of like functioning victors that we see very well. And in Catching Fire, you get a lot of their like trauma stuff. Right. But because Haymitch isn't in those games, we didn't get as much background on him as we did for others. But I was very excited to like understand what carried him to that point and what led him to be so cynical at the beginning of the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And then I also kind of was very excited to see how we bridged the gap between Songbird Snake and the Hunger Games, because they're obviously very different worlds. Like, you know, the kids from the district are all taken in like the back of a crappy van, and they're like left in like a zoo in Songbird Snake, right? They're in like abysmal conditions. They're starving before their games. And then you get to the Hunger Games, and like Katniss and Peeta are like being shoved all these delicacies and food, and they're well taken care of, and they have like whole these beautiful silky clothes. And you know, it's basically what we expect from like a very wealthy society. And obviously when Snow was younger, that's not the reality we have as they're closer to the war. Right. So I definitely was very interested in how their nation was developing between these two spots. And that was one of the expectations I had for the book, which I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit, but I do think it bridged quite a gap, although it did leave me with a lot of questions. For sure. I also was very interested to see how Suzanne Collins treated the like corruption in the government, because obviously we're in 2025 and there are a lot of parallels that I feel like she has made. So it was very important to me to see how she presented them, and I think it's awesome. So that's what I expected. Yeah. So do you think that for you this book met your expectations? Was it what you expected?
No. We talked about this a teensy bit when we first finished it, but the fun part is me and Sam really haven't talked about this book yet.
So we haven't, because we haven't seen each other.
Yes, this is the first glance. It didn't really, I don't know how to explain it. I wish I would have saved that voice message I sent you when I finished it, but I feel like if I remember right, I enjoyed it. I just wish I wouldn't have put so much on it and wanted it to fill more gaps for me. Like, I just feel like it was fun to be back in the Hunger Games universe, and I don't think that it was a bad book by any means. I thought that it was really great. I think I just kind of made up in my head what I was expecting, and it wasn't really that, and it was just a really, honestly, heartbreaking book. Like, I finished, and my heart just, like, ached for Haymitch. So I think that it made me feel a lot of things, so I think that it was a really impactful and great book. I just don't know that it was what I was expecting, but I don't know that it was necessarily a negative thing.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
What about you?
I definitely feel like it met my expectations. Obviously it left me with a lot of questions, but I think that's part of the fun stuff. And you and I will differ on that, because I know that that's something I love, and I know that you really want those to be wrapped up. Yeah. Right. But I genuinely really loved it. I think it met my expectations. I think it kind of went a little further than my expectations, because I don't think I ever expected some of the things to come up that did. Yeah. And I really appreciated them. Yes. So I kind of wanted to get into those like themes a little bit. Yeah. Because one of the first things we really wanted to talk about was how so many people popped up. And obviously we should have expected that, but it wasn't like my priority. No, right? Mine either. So I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm going to see all the other victors, or I'm going to see, you know, all these other people, or the mentors, or, you know, all these things. But it was instantaneous. Like the first moment I opened the book, I was like, I know these people. Yeah. So just a fair heads up here. Obviously spoilers, so please read the book. It was really good. It's a pretty quick read, so give it a read or listen, and then come back. Okay, so basically off the bat, we get people that we should recognize in some form or the other. And not necessarily by their names, because obviously some of them we like really don't see a ton in the like original Hunger Games, but we do, like with context clues, see who they are. Yeah. So if you're really smart, you immediately get it. If not, somebody else has to point it out to you. I'll let you guess which was which here. So basically immediately on like starting this book, you get people popping up that you're like, okay, yeah. So Haymitch in this story he has a girlfriend, and her name is Lenore Dove. And obviously by her name, we kind of understand that she is a member of the Covey, because she goes by two names. She also, like the second name of her two names is a color. Yeah. So we realize, like, obviously if you've read Songbird Snake, like you realize that this like ethnic group that exists in 12, the Covey, I mean, she's obviously going to be part of them.
Yeah, and we talk a little bit more about them, but the way that the Covey are is quite different. In Songbird Snake, they're very outspoken. They do a lot of performances.
They're still fairly nomadic as well. Like, moving around is still an option for them.
Yeah. So, but it definitely is scaled back at least a little bit. Like, they're not as prevalent and not as, like, performing at bars and meetings and things like that. They do a little traveling, but it's definitely scaled back.
Mm-hmm. They have a lot more restrictions on them about, like, what songs they can sing and things like that.
Yes.
But right after we're introduced to Lenore, we are introduced to Haymitch's best friend, Burdock. And we obviously are, like, don't really know anything about Burdock except that he, like, is a miner. But we also realize that he is, like, someone who's really great at hunting and he's blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's great. And then just shortly after that, we are introduced to Astrid. Astrid is this, like, beautiful, blonde, wealthy girl who lives with them about their age.
Yep.
Haymitch always is like, there's absolutely no way Burdock is going to be with this girl. But Burdock's obsessed with her, right?
Yeah.
So this pretty clearly matches Katniss's parents.
If you have a brain, it does.
Like, to a T, right? Like, like it's not really super ambiguous because, like, 3 chapters later, he's like, oh, yeah, not like Burdock, Everdeen. And you're like, ah, yeah, right. Because, you know, Katniss, Everdeen. But,
and
like,
if you're reading this at 6:30 in the morning at work, you might miss that.
You may, yeah.
And that's okay. I get it.
But, like, you get all these, like, very fun, like, Easter eggs post-fact because we know, like, Prim was this, like, beautiful blonde, like, kid, and Katniss looks like her dad. And
Katniss's dad taught Katniss how to hunt.
Yeah. And, like, died in a mine. And, like, it just, there's so many, like, things that you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And Haymitch is like, I really, like, wasn't a big fan of Astrid until I saw her heal someone, and it was just so much, like, you know, he sees her as a healer and everything. So it's so interesting to have these people be the same age as our main character, because in the Hunger Games they were, like, dead or really old or you know, like, they were parents.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to kind of zoom out and get them as different people. We also see Peeta's dad briefly.
Yeah.
Otho, I believe is his name, at, like, in the middle of the, like, reaping, I think. He's
it's
like
not
a witness there. We basically just see him, and we are, like, described, like, that he's, like, a stocky dude, and, like, he's got, like, big beefy hands or whatever. Yeah. And we're like, Alex Peeta.
Genetics.
But, like, from the beginning of the book, we are introduced to these people who we know in passing as secondary characters who become a really important part of Haymitch's story.
Yes. One of the characters that pops up that we know and are familiar with is Plutarch, actually. He pops up and he is a part of Capitol's propaganda. He's assigned to District 12 to help with filming and getting all the content and making them look good, essentially. But he really takes on that role, and Haymitch just doesn't really trust him. And you see Plutarch is really close to President Snow because he is the president at this point, and he's kind of playing both sides of the coin here. He's a part of Snow and, like, his inner circle, but he also is in the rebellion and he is already there. I would love to see more of Plutarch's story because we really don't get to see his evolution. We hear little things here and there, but, like, how did they get there? Because the Heaven Bees are, if I'm wrong, I think they're pretty well off. They were.
Heaven's Bees, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Haymitch goes to his home, and it's, like, this gorgeous mansion with, like, beautiful art and, like, a giant garden. And he comments about how, like, rich people spend their money in the weirdest ways.
Yeah. So it's just really interesting to see Plutarch, who is at the top of his chain, still be a rebel and wanting the world to change. But it's also hard because Haymitch is like, I don't trust anybody. So I thought he was a really complex character.
Yeah, I genuinely really liked it because, like you said, I mean, we see him as this undercover, like, dude who is actively part of the rebellion, but we kind of didn't get a ton of background on it. So it was nice to add another layer. But it is interesting that 25 years later, he's still at it.
Right. Well, because we see in this book that he is actively trying to bring the arena down and bring the games down. And he talks to Haymitch at the end and is like, we're just waiting for somebody who's like you, but a little bit better. So I can't believe it took 25 years to finally do it.
Well, and I think he thought Haymitch could be that person.
Yeah.
But I think both of them really underestimated like the system they had going.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, it just is so crazy that he stood by that. And I also do wonder when he retired, because the big thing in Catching Fire is that Plutarch is a game maker who is coming back to the Hunger Games because he's retired. So, like, at what point did he stop? And it kind of makes me wonder, like, is that when he really started getting into District 13? Like, what? I just want to know his story, you know?
Yeah, it would be really cool to have some of Plutarch's story. I think he was a very compelling character in this one because, again, it's laced with so much suspicion. And that's one of the parallels that we have between Haymitch and Katniss, is Haymitch really doesn't have a lot of trust in the people who are trying to help him.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, obviously you wouldn't, right? Something that I didn't write down that we wanted to talk about, but that I would love to talk about is how Haymitch is actually called at the Reaping.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Because I think that's something we hadn't seen in any of the other Hunger Games.
Right. Well, and it, once again, another parallel to Katniss.
Yeah.
Like,
they weren't originally called. Like, their names weren't pulled.
Yeah, and they had to go for other people. And another parallel to Katniss is Katniss got an 11 on her score from the sponsor people. And Haymitch got, what was a 1 or a 0?
It was a 1.
A 1. So they were on opposite sides of the spectrum, but another parallel where they did something unheard of in their thing.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. So at the actual Reaping, we find out very early on that the Reaping, so July 4th, is Haymitch's birthday.
Yeah.
Which is awful. I mean, and he talks about it a lot at the beginning. Like, yeah, I can get out of a little bit of work, but it's also because everyone feels sad for me because my birthday is literally on the Reaping.
Yeah.
He doesn't have as many of the little like extra name things. I forgot what they were called again, but
where they like buy shares to have food. Yeah.
Is it Tesserae or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, like he doesn't have like as many as Katniss did, but he definitely has quite a few in there. But he's obviously not expecting to go, and that's totally fine. He spends the morning a little bit with his girlfriend, and then buying some candies for his little brother Sid, who he loves, and then he goes to the Reaping, and they obviously have to call 4 names instead of 2 because of this quarter quell.
Yeah.
And they call the first 2, and then they call the second boy, and he immediately like starts running and like fighting his way out, and they end up like murdering him, like just straight up killing
right there
him.
Yeah.
And Lenore Dove, who is Haymitch's girlfriend, obviously, starts kind of fighting it and like tries to fight to go to the boy.
Yeah.
And is trying to like help his family and like make sure everything's okay, and they're like pulling her off of the situation, and she's very like not willing to accept that.
Yeah.
So Haymitch kind of goes over there and is like pulling people away from them, and kind of ends up in the middle of this, like he gets mixed up in basically like a little fight there, and they're like, great, we'll take him.
Yeah.
What's your name? And then they like refilm it all to make it look like he was called after they've like murdered this other boy.
Right.
So he doesn't get called originally. He just is in a terrible situation.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not great. But I also think it kind of adds to his story, because I think that he wasn't expecting it, but he accepted it almost immediately.
For sure. He didn't fight it. He wasn't like, I don't know what to do. He was like, this is what I'm going to have to do. Take care of my family.
I am really glad that it doesn't parallel Katniss in other ways. I'm glad that Sid, his brother, wasn't involved in the games in that way.
Yeah.
But it definitely does lead a little bit to like Lenore Dove and her like political affiliations, and how she is way more rebellious than Haymitch ever was.
For sure. She definitely has that covey in her bones. Sorry, not the bones.
The bones.
She has that covey in her bones.
No, she absolutely is. And Haymitch knows this. Like, she's been arrested twice for like, you know, singing songs and possibly lighting a fire, and like, you know, she's just rebellious. She doesn't believe in the capital system, and that's okay. But Haymitch is never the one that was really aiming to try to take down the Capitol, but he has it very clearly in his mind from things that people in his life have told him that he shouldn't let the Capitol use him for their purposes.
And I was actually going to bring that up. That is one of my favorite themes and something that I highlighted throughout the book multiple times is just the idea of we've given them enough, don't give them any more, don't give them that power. We are here to pay the price. Like that was just such a huge theme of this book, and I really loved that. I think it was so real to the world we live in now.
Yeah, I really loved it too. I think that's amazing. Like they're not going to use my tears. They're not going to use me.
They will not use it for their entertainment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. I do think it bridged the gap fairly well between Songbird Snake and Hunger Games. Mm-hmm. We see the Hunger Games as kind of this intermediate moment. Like they're not in like beautiful penthouses, but they're also not like trapped in a zoo without food.
Right.
They are like in a kind of shabby apartment building. They are transported by van. Like it's not luxurious like Katniss and Peeta experience.
Right.
But it is starting to be that way. And it absolutely is starting to be a source of entertainment, especially post games.
Yeah.
There are starting to be like a ton of parties and more betting, and like it's obviously becoming a successful part of the Capitol system.
Right. And we see like they have designers, but it's not as big and not as intricate, but it's like, oh, need to get you for this, and you know, it's just kind of like I think you hit it perfectly. It's bridging that gap between them where we're not quite to the Hunger Games yet, but it's definitely progressed in the 40 years since we saw.
Yeah, and I do think it bridges the gap okay between Snow. We obviously don't see him a ton, but we do see him, and we see that he's really on his crap, right? Like in one of the first scenes that we actively see the president in, he has like, you can tell he's just poisoned someone, and he is poisoned himself, obviously, but has like sufficient immunity to not die.
Yeah.
So like you know that he's being the same person that you know from Songbird Snake.
And we see that he's pretty sick and he just isn't doing well, but he still has that like authority of like, no, you're not going to do this. Like, this is my world and you're living in it.
Absolutely. And you see the same cruelty that was almost in its infancy in Songbird Snake.
For sure.
And is absolutely waning towards the end of Hunger Games. But you see it at its peak and what all the victors have experienced.
Well, and we see Haymitch at the very end. One of the last things he says is snow falls on top.
Yeah. No, and there are so many like very interesting ways that it does connect. So I loved the gaps. I loved the way that it really truly showed who Snow is.
Yes.
And continues to be.
Yeah.
And not as like a hot Tom Blythe, you know?
Yeah. You see that he really is an awful person. And in one of those ways that we see he's an awful person, we see the character Luella. It got confusing, but her name was Luella, and while they're doing the chariot situation where they come out and present themselves as possible victors, they come out and she's involved in a chariot accident and actually dies. And
like pre-games, yeah.
Yeah, so Haymitch is livid and he carries her body up to the president and is basically like, he doesn't say anything, but he's like, you did this. Like, he makes it very known. And they can't do anything because she's dead, but then they have to do so much explaining. So they pick some other girl from District 11 and brainwash
who looks
her.
Very similar, like almost identical to Luella.
Yeah, and they brainwash her and they put like things in her ears so like they can make her say what they want, and like it's this poor girl, and they bring her back and everybody's like, who is this? And all she can say is, I'm Luella from District 12. And like it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. No, and they do it several times where the Capitol covers up so well for themselves.
Yes.
Luella's death is the equivalent of basically like Katniss and Peeta's moment with the like poison berries with the Nightlock, except that it's pre-games and cameras aren't on them, so the Capitol can erase it completely.
Right.
Like the timing again was just completely off.
Yeah.
If the whole nation had seen what Haymitch did, it would have been the beginning of an uprising.
Absolutely.
Right, but they didn't because the Capitol was so good at propaganda, and Plutarch is an active participant in it.
Yes. And I don't really know what his motives were, but he was really good at helping cover everything and knew what to do to change the narrative.
Absolutely.
So I really wanted to touch on the ending here.
Okay.
Because we see Haymitch wins his games by being super creative, using that force field rebound situation to take out his last opponent.
Well, and he almost dies. It's really almost like Katniss's ending in Catching Fire.
Yeah.
Where he's like pulled out and wakes up with like tubes in him. Like he is almost dead.
Yeah. And his whole plan was to take down the games. So yeah, he was like Katniss in Catching Fire there. And he makes it home and he realizes that his house is on fire.
Yeah. Like as he's getting home.
They like kept him. They had to do tours, the whole thing. And he's walking up to his home. But before he went home, Snow visits him and is very like threatening and just kind of watch yourself. I know what you did. All that kind of stuff. And he comes home and his house is on fire. And his brother and his mom are inside and they die in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like lost his family and he's like, it's okay. Like that's like, obviously it's not okay, but like he still has his girlfriend and he goes to go see her. And Sam kind of mentioned it, but at the very beginning, he goes on the day of the reaping to go buy her some candy, her and his brother, some candy. And he gives it to Sid and is like, make sure that she gets this. And he goes and sees her and she was in jail for a little bit and they finally bring her home and she's really excited to see him and he starts like giving her the candy and he realized
she had it with her. Like they had given it to her
Mm-hmm.
at the thing and she was like, oh yeah, the stuff that Sid gave me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like he pops one in her mouth.
Yeah, and gives it to her and they're like finally reunited, happy. And then he like looks in the bag and realizes that they're all red and he's like, spit it out right now. And she's like, I already ate it. What's the problem?
Mm-hmm.
And then she dies.
Yeah, like it's poison. Like it's Snow's favorite device.
So as soon as he gets home in the first like 24 hours, he loses everyone that he loves.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that was part of Haymitch's games, is that he made a fool of President Snow at the very beginning, before the games even started, with the stunt with Luella.
Yeah.
Right? She dies and he runs straight to the president's mansion and holds her body up and starts clapping at the president. Like, this is you. This is your fault.
Yeah.
And President Snow the whole time, it was surprising because this isn't his prerogative, but he tells Haymitch that he's ensured that he dies. Right?
Mm-hmm.
His death is certain.
Yes.
So throughout the games, Haymitch is really trying to make these statements because President Snow tells him, at least you know that your family and friends like will live long and happy lives after you're dead. Right? But throughout the game, Haymitch is so sure of his own death that he's confident in making these statements and trying to, destroy the arena because he knows that he's going to die in the arena. And he finds a lot of comfort knowing that both Lenore Dove and his mom and Sid are going to live long, happy lives.
Right. Well, and he has this idea that he wants to make his own poster as him and one of his allies. Remind me what her name was? Maisie. They had decided that a lot of times they create these poster moments for tributes and kind of who they were. And they decide that they want to take that narrative on their own and make their own poster moments. That's what he keeps doing. He keeps rebelling, and he's even really kind to another tribute at one point and gives her candy when she's trying to kill them. Like, he just makes these moments that shows who he is and how wrong this is because, like you said, he's so confident that he's dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it did shock me, right? I mean, that was the one twist in the book that I was like, wow, they're still alive? Like, I expected him to come home and everyone tell him, like, oh, your family's dead.
Yeah.
Or like something happened. And when they were like, oh yeah, your mom and Sid are like at home and Lenore's just getting out of prison, but like don't go right now because like her uncle will be a better like representative for her.
Yeah.
Go see her later or whatever. I definitely was like, oh my gosh, they're still alive. But it's so like Snow to wait and be as cruel as physically possible, as humanly possible.
Yeah.
To kill the people that Haymitch loves.
And that was our retribution for thinking Tom Blythe is hot.
Yeah. Like, you went to that movie and you walked out and you were like, he's so hot. Like, I get it. That's what you made happen.
That's your fault. I'm guilty. It's me.
Yeah. It's everybody. I get it. But no, the ending was so hard because we see so many times that Haymitch isn't the person throughout this book that he is portrayed to be in the Hunger Games. And it's because of this absolute cruelty that he's experienced throughout his life.
Yeah.
And everything he goes through is a punishment.
Yeah.
Snow set him up to be a mentor for everyone after that and knew that they would fail. And I mean, we see that throughout the book. One thing that we forgot to mention when we talked about how so many people popped back up, we talked a little bit about Maisie, and she is a Donner. So the mayor's, in the original Hunger Games, the mayor has a daughter who gives Katniss a Mockingjay pin.
Yeah.
That is her token and becomes the symbol of the rebellion. And honestly, I think it's genuinely beautiful that this pin was actually Maisie's.
Yes, it was, because they all get like a little token to bring from home with them to the arena.
Yeah, and Maisie left the Mockingjay pin at home. She had it in like a random drawer, and Lenore Dove hated her because it was of this like beautiful quality, because her uncle had like made it for the Donners and everything. And she just kind of like threw it in the back drawer and was like, I hate it. Like Mockingjays are so disgusting. That's gross.
Yeah.
Another way that, sorry, I'm just getting a little bit distracted with this because of the token situation, but Haymitch's token is another representation of bridging the gap between Songbird Snake and the Hunger Games. His token is literally a snake forged into a Mockingjay, like combined with them. There's this point where the scales become feathers. Yep. And it's genuinely the most like beautiful symbolism. Yep. So this is throughout. I mean, we get so many things popping up, and it's the same with Snow's cruelty. Right. And we see that with some of the other people who pop up, like the other victors. So in Catching Fire, we get to know all of these victors that Haymitch knows and loves, and we don't understand why, but we do understand them a little bit more in this book. Yeah. So a few of the people that show up are Wyrus and Beatty, who are like Katniss's allies. Yes. Also, Mags shows up, and it's so cool to see her younger.
She's so sweet.
She's so sweet. But we see that Snow's cruelty really has extended from so early on. Yeah. Beatty is like, has knowingly been aligned with the rebellion. Yeah. And in punishment, his son is put into this Hunger Games with Haymitch, right? And Beatty is made to be his mentor.
Which is heartbreaking.
Because
obviously Beatty is still like, I'm still a part of the rebellion, so he has to include his son in the plans of bringing down the arena.
Well, and he knows that he's going to die. He knows that his son will not, it's not possible for his son Ampert to make it out of the arena because it's a punishment from President Snow.
And they don't let Ampert go nicely either.
No.
It's so cruel.
Well, and we also see that Haymitch's actions and their own actions against Snow cause a lot of issues for the others that I just mentioned, right? There's this part near the end where Haymitch is meeting his team again, and it says that Mags arrives in a wheelchair while a very distressed Wyrus twitches her head about in a bird-like fashion, a steady stream of words spouting from her lips. So it's in this moment where Wyrus starts like the crazy
going crazy,
right?
Because we see that in Catching Fire that she's lost her mind.
Yeah, she can't form like coherent thoughts.
But Beatty knew her and knew what was kind of going on, so that's why we see them as such good friends in Catching Fire.
I'm convinced they're in love, but that's okay. That's just me.
That's not me, but like, I love that for you.
It's fine, they're in love.
Yeah.
But no, I genuinely think it was wrapped up so well, but the ending was very heartbreaking.
It really was.
And it did leave us with quite a few questions. Yeah. I do think before we get to like the questions that it left us with, the ending was a very fun contrast, and not fun contrast. I'm sorry, I say that in like a very like habitual way, but like it was a very like poignant contrast from the Haymitch we see at the beginning and the Haymitch we see at the end. Totally. Specifically with his relationship to white liquor and alcohol. Yeah. And I know you had a quote about it.
I do. Do you want me to share it right now?
Yeah.
Okay. It says, hoping for something better could be dangerous. It could blind me to the reality of my situation. I remember how Mama always said, where there's life, there's hope. But from where I'm sitting, hope seems a lot like white liquor. It can fool you in the short run, but like as not, you'll end up paying for it twice.
Yeah.
And we see after he's hurt and brought back that they keep giving him cough medicine to make him sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And he just falls into it. And it gets harder and harder into liquor. And he helped make liquor, actually, before he went to the Hunger Games.
He actually says at the very beginning of the book, like, I'm not much one for liquor.
And
like,
so
he doesn't drink.
It was just really hard to see that, although I think maybe he could have gotten there on his own, it originally was there to help him and to help him sleep. And there was no harm in his friends trying to make it so he could survive. But it ended up being used in a negative way, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so with the ending, were you left with anything that you just like want to know about? Like, would you want a Plutarch story, or like what were you left with?
We talked about this a teensy bit. Obviously, Plutarch, I would love to know his story, even if it was like a short story kind of book where it was like 400 pages and there's like 4 mini stories in there about like different times. Because I don't know that we'd be able to do just one like couple months story about Plutarch and get what I need.
One person I would like to see is like Finnick's book.
Oh my gosh, Finnick is also so hot.
Yeah.
But I sometimes feel guilty asking for more books from Suzanne Collins about Hunger Games, because what better am I than people of the Capitol for wanting to like see more of the story, you know?
I know. Yeah, I definitely, there's like a love-hate relationship with it, because it's not necessarily the games that I want to see.
No.
But it's also that's what made them who they are.
For sure. So I feel kind of guilty, but I know we both really wanted to know more about the Covey and kind of where Lucy Gray ended. Like where...
Yeah, so there is a part of the end that kind of gives us some Lucy Gray background. It actually like has her name in it and everything, but I am left with a question about how the Covey basically disappeared. They're not like mentioned in the Hunger Games at all. There isn't like a musical group. 12 as a group of people is like a musical group of people, but they don't mention the Covey by name.
No. And they do have like some of the songs, like The Hanging Tree, although it is a little bit tweaked. They do have like the song.
And Katniss doesn't know the origins of them.
Yeah.
She specifically in the book says like someone along the way like wrote this, or some like it's just a song that my dad taught me. But like she doesn't know where it came from, and it's interesting to me that they're not mentioned at all in the originals if they were such a big part. And that was really where I was a little bit not let down but confused by the ending, because I assumed that part of Haymitch's punishment would be that he would come home to like the Covey house burned down. Or like them as a people being eradicated because of Snow's hatred towards them.
Well, and I just thought it was so interesting because Haymitch puts together so quickly that Snow dated a Covey girl and like knows about his relationship with that. Like he somehow puts it all together so quickly. And when he goes to like kind of question it and even ask Lenore Dove, she refuses to talk about Lucy Gray. Like she's like, I don't know. Like she just, nobody will talk about her. And it just seems so interesting because she was so impactful that I'm just confused on how she got wiped out of the history.
Well, and it is interesting because at the very end, we do see a glimpse at her grave, which she had left 12. And so I wonder how she found her way back. I do wonder quite a lot about the Covey as a people.
Yeah.
Where it's talking about, it says he finally is taken to Lenore Dove's grave, basically, where she is. And it's a Covey gravesite. And we know that it's way past where Katniss generally goes. It's past the lake. It's past the, like, everything she goes to, right?
Yeah.
But it says on one of them, on a mossy slab of slate, there's written, "Yet some maintain that to this day she is a living child, that you may see sweet Lucy Gray upon the lonesome wild." So it's written on a gravestone.
Yeah.
So whether she's there or not, like she is very clearly part of the Covey's living memory. So it's interesting to me, one, where they've gone in 25 years, because that's not a lot of time to lose an entire,
for sure.
But it also is very interesting that Haymitch had this whole history, and it's almost like it's so like reverent to him.
Yeah.
And to others that it doesn't like factor in. But I do feel like there's more bridging that could be done. I don't know that it's necessary. And honestly, I would leave that to Suzanne, because she has incredible like insight.
Yeah, I don't think
her own universe.
I think that if I sat her down and I got to talk to her, I'd be like, I would love to know more, but I'm also okay if you don't give us more. Like, this isn't something that I'm like, I need to know, but I would like to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely am a huge Suzanne Collins fans. I definitely am a huge Suzanne Collins fan. I said that really wrong the first time. That's fine.
I'm a big Suzanne Collins fan.
Just to end things off, I did have a quote that I really liked.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there were really so many quotes that I could go with, but this is the one that stood out to me most as we're talking about it today.
Mm-hmm.
Haymitch is constantly blaming himself for the system that he's put into.
Yeah.
And he talks so much about how children born into corrupt government like structures are almost like ingrained in them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So as he's reflecting towards the end of the book, he says, Plutarch's words echo through my head, mocking me. No more implicit submission for you, Haymitch. Blow that water tank sky high. The entire country needs you to. Well, bad call, Plutarch. Turns out I was built for implicit submission. Head to toe, through and through, inside out. And I think just as a person, I think that resonates. Mm-hmm. Because I think so many times in our lives, we feel so helpless to change things around us. And obviously we don't live in the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
But there are structures that you want to go out and change and you want to make better for people around you. But Haymitch's like desperation and hopelessness really resonates with me because that's the same sense that Katniss was fighting with throughout the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
She's continuously saying that she didn't go into things to change a system or to be a symbol of a rebellion. And it's hard to think that sometimes we believe that we are built for submission. And it's really hard. But I think that was one of the most beautiful parts of Haymitch's story, is that his desperation and hopelessness was the thing that overall had to be overcome in order for the system to change.
Yeah. And I think it's just so crazy that he had to just become like submissive and just do whatever. Like he got into the drinking, and then after then it was just like, whatever, we can't do anything anyway. But then once it was time to step up again in Mockingjay, he was there.
Yeah. Well, and there is an epilogue, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
That comes after the original Hunger Games. So we're not going to spoil that one for you, but it genuinely is beautiful. And I teared up a little because I was like, oh my gosh, I love you.
I did tear up as well, actually.
So you get a little glimpse at Katniss and Peeta and the people around them and Haymitch's future. And I genuinely think that this book is really well worth the read. So I would 100% recommend it. I loved it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what we have.
Yeah.
Go read it.
Yes. All right. Next week, we conducted another one of our very scientific experiments. Woohoo. And we loved it. This was something a little bit different that didn't require as much Reddit and more reading.
Way to be reading. It's almost like this is a book podcast.
But the experiment was we were going to read famous authors and like their more well-known books, and then read books that they have written that aren't as well known. And kind of compare them. It's hard to so how would you explain it?
Yeah, so basically we took books that we were like, okay, it seems like every single person we know has read this book. It seems like everybody knows this author. This is such like a famous book. And then we a lot of times realized that they had written other things and just no one had read them. So we were like, you know what? We're going to go in and we're going to read a really famous book, regardless of where the recommendation comes from. Like, you know, we'll read a bunch of random TikTok books or we'll read whatever, and they're very famous. And then we'll go and find another book that the author has written, and it's one that people don't talk about. It was very interesting. So I'm so excited to talk about it.
Yeah. So we're really excited to do that. If you liked today's episode, you are in luck. We post every Monday. And if you need your fix throughout the week, you can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Bookyard Pod.
Have a good week.
See you guys.